Hello, peaceful people. This is Emily from the Peaceful People Project. First of all, I'd like to apologize for filming this video a day late. I actually went to a domestic violence walk yesterday that was here in Barrie, and so my original plan was to make a video slideshow about that, but I've run into some technical difficulties with my camera. So, today is Monday, October 21st, and that means there's just 10 days left until Halloween. I love Halloween, but what I don't love is the racist Halloween costumes that tend to crop up every year around Halloween. I'm also not a fan of the slutty Halloween costumes, but hey, one problem at a time, right? So, first of all, I wanted to talk to you about the popular Pocahottie costumes that seem to be in style, especially this year. I'm going to show you a few of them right now. Now, as you can see, these costumes are heavily influenced by the Disney film Pocahontas. Now, a lot of you probably don't see a problem with this because Pocahontas is widely believed to be one of Disney's better movies. Yes, it's true that the Disney film Pocahontas is the first Disney movie to be based on an actual historical event. And yes, it's true that Pocahontas the movie conveys a positive message about not being racist and about cultural diversity and about not judging people before you get to know them. In the film Pocahontas, John Smith comes from England to what he calls the New World, and he meets Pocahontas. He believes her to be a savage until she educates him about her culture. They run through the forest and she sings Colors of the Wind, and she teaches him all about being connected with nature and about getting to know all the people and the animals and loving them and not judging them. In the end, John Smith and Pocahontas fall in love, and although she chooses to remain with her tribe instead of going back to England with John Smith, he respects this decision because by this time he's come to regard her as an equal. Yeah, that's not how it went down in real life. It's true that the marriage of the real Pocahontas with John Rolfe is the first recorded interracial marriage in history, but it wasn't a marriage of equals. The real Pocahontas was basically forced to live like a white person, and she was presented to society as a civilized savage. This is incredibly offensive. Not only to call someone a savage, but to regard one ethnicity as better or worse than any other, or to reduce someone's ethnicity, their culture, into a mere stereotype, a caricature of who they really are. In 2013, we should know better. Making fun of other people's cultures, even once a year through Halloween costumes, is exactly what peace is not. It shuts down open, honest, authentic communication between people of different cultures. It shuts down any hope of people being able to resolve their problems peacefully, because instead of asking, instead of trying to find out more about other people and their backgrounds, it just forces a preconceived and often inaccurate idea upon them. I wish I could say that the story of Pocahontas was an isolated incident, but it wasn't. My friend Charlotte had a grandmother, who was part Ojibwe and part Munsee Delaware. Charlotte's grandmother was taken as a child to a residential school where she was basically forced to learn to live like a white person because the government felt that First Nations peoples were savages. Eventually, Charlotte's grandmother and the other children got out of the residential school, and eventually the government apologized. But that doesn't erase the scars. When I went to Australia, I learned that a similar thing had happened there. My Aboriginal education professor, Anthony, remembered very clearly the day that he had to crouch down and hide in the cornfields while he saw his cousins being taken off to residential schools for the same reason. To this day, he carries the burden of guilt for that moment. I know I've also spoken about the time I spent living and working in the International House community in Wollongong, Australia. That was a truly life-changing experience. Right there in my home, I got to interact with people from all different countries, from all different cultures all over the world. Some of my best friends were from places like India, Kenya, China, Pakistan, Singapore, and all over the world. The reason the International House community worked so well was because we saw people as people first and as culture second. If we had a question about someone's home country or about a specific holiday or celebration or custom they had in their culture, we would ask about it. We would never, ever assume. And people would mostly give honest answers. They would tell as much as they could, as much as they felt comfortable about. A lot of people asked me about life in Canada, and I told them things that seemed normal and commonplace to me, but they were new and different to them. Like, for example, a lot of Australians had trouble believing that in Canada, in the dead of winter, we have to plug in our cars in the morning. Plug in our cars in the evening so they start in the morning. And the gifts of this open and honest sharing are immeasurable, but I'm going to show you one of the tangible gifts that I got right now. This is a Chinese doll that my housemate from China gave to me. Her name is Yunjia, but she adopted the English name Summer while she was living in the International House community. She gave it to me after a break when she went back to China to visit her family. And I treasure it because this is exactly what International House is about. Now, let me show you, by contrast, some of the offensive, stereotyped costumes of other cultures, so you can see what we're up against here. So, when you look at those costumes through a lens of cultural sensitivity, they're pretty offensive. I have friends from places like Pakistan and Iran. I have friends who practice Islam. I have friends who, just by virtue of their ethnic background and their religion, they're associated with terrorist groups. This kind of stuff is the reason why there have been such harsh laws made against Sikh individuals wearing turbans. The idea that anyone from a certain culture or anyone from a certain faith is a terrorist is completely offensive and completely wrong. And when I see that kind of thing, when I start to think that some people think that everyone from my friend's culture is a terrorist, that just makes my blood boil. But here's the good part. You can be a part of the solution by simply refusing to be a part of the problem. You can choose a Halloween costume this year that's not offensive. You can go to the store and choose something that's not based on another person's culture, because it's not going to be accurate. Or better yet, you can stay home and make your own costume. Here are some examples. You can be a cat. Meow. You can be a rabbit. You can be a polar bear. Roar. You can even be a butterfly. Now, those are just 4 examples of Halloween costumes that aren't offensive. If you use your imagination, the possibilities are limitless. Now, just by watching this video, you have shown me that you are kind and compassionate and culturally aware enough that you want to do the right thing. And to me, that's beautiful. When you do the right thing, when you make the choice to relate to people of other cultures in an open-minded and compassionate way, here's what it can look like.